Very good afternoon to all of you. We will continue our discussion on integrated marketing communication. If you're in a position to recall, what we were discussing last time was what role IMC course can perhaps play so far as your career is concerned. And we're trying to understand as to what do marketing people do in an organization. What we're trying to understand was that in an organization, predominantly there are two important functions, business organization. Typically one is operations, other is marketing. And marketing looks after value exchange process with two kind of exchanges taking place. One is goods and services for money, and the other is information exchange, which largely revolves around getting insights about the market, understanding through market research, etc., and doing communication or promotion of the brand. And what we're trying to say is that this function of information exchange is largely responsible for creating demand, which plays significant role so far as consumer market is concerned in the overall transaction or the sale. So we're trying to understand that how sales management role perhaps is different from the brand management role, and how both the roles in different contexts can become important. Brand management roles perhaps are more exciting and may demand a lot of scientific understanding when it comes to consumer market. And they are not just only responsible for creating demand in the short run, but they also try to build an asset called brand, which actually help optimize the marketing expenditure, then improve return on investment. So they play fairly strategic roles in organization and move up the hierarchy from brand manager to category manager to divisional marketing head and then CMO. And in fast moving consumer goods companies, quite often they also end up taking up leadership role. Uh, we were also trying to understand as to what do these brand managers do in terms of their management function. And what we're saying is that they prepare, most importantly, marketing plan for the brand that they manage. And this marketing plan generally, as you already know and have discussed in detail in the first year, largely revolves around developing marketing strategy which will help the achieve goals of achieving sales and market share targets for the brand. And this strategy is an important element which largely is articulated in terms of target segment and the benefit or the value that the brand chooses to associate. So basically, it's actually a choice from various alternatives of target consumers as well as the benefit that the brand has to make choice of, and that becomes the brand's positioning strategy. Once this value proposition or the positioning strategy is known, the brand then tries to chalk out various tasks and activities which actually are grouped under four different broad action program: product related activities, price related activities, channel and distribution related activities, and finally promotion related activities. A brand manager may not be actually doing all the activities. For that, they could be specialists. So you have product development division or R&D, where this brand managers would be dealing to get the right product out. They might be dealing with advertising agency to do the promotions done. They might be dealing with the sales people to make sure that the product is distributed and stocked at the right quantity and the right level in the distribution channel. But the overall orchestration of developing the marketing plan and its implementation is with the brand managers. So they basically are a sort of mini entrepreneur within the large corporate, and they have full responsibility to run the business of the brands that they manage. The strategy as well as the action program, as we are saying, is subjective. It has to be in context, in which the brand operates, and hence, understanding the micro environment in which brand operates becomes very, very important, which is what is the situation analysis. So any strategy, as we're saying, has to be, about choosing the best alternative, and the best alternative depends on the situation. So you have to do thorough situation analysis even when you are developing marketing strategy, and that actually is done well if you try to examine the brand's situation from four different perspectives: from the perspective of the consumers, from the perspective of competition, the company's own systems, policies, values and purpose, and the trade partners, distributors and retailers. So this is what we're discussing. An important thing that we're trying to look at is that what matters is not just the value that the company has chosen, but how successfully they are able to implement the strategy and create the right perception of these benefits in the mind of the consumer. So we're trying to look at that how companies, for example, just an illustration I was trying to share, that company, in order to save taxes, and GST, are actually calling it edible oil, but the strategy is to create perceived value in the minds of consumer of hair care benefit, not edible oil benefits. That's why it's in fine print. But despite edible oil written on the packaging, the marketing efforts actually is successfully creating the impression that the brand holds this value of hair care. So perceived value and perceptions play significant role in marketing, and quite often brand managers spend a lot of effort in developing right kind of perceptions and image in the minds of the consumer. And that's where marketing communication plays significant role of the four P's, particularly even before the purchase actually happens. After the purchase, the product will itself provide that value and the benefit, but before that, communication can create that perception that the brand can deliver those benefits, and that becomes very, very important element. What we will do today is that I will take you through another story to understand that how communication can become a very, very important tool to translate strategy into action and create perception or imagery, which can then play a significant role in brand success. And this is a story of Scorpio, a brand that most of you must be familiar with. Is a vehicle, passenger vehicle, from Mahindra and Mahindra, and this was launched in early 2000. And when it was getting launched, the situation of the market was looking something like this. Now I have question. You just try to look at this data, which actually talks about the market and various segments. In automobile market in India, the segments are by the size and the type of vehicles, and they are generally A, B, C, D, which is actually the size of the car. So smallest car is segment A, and all the way up to segment D, which is luxury car, luxury sedan. Segment C is sedan, segment C plus is premier sedan, and then luxury sedan. And then you will have utility vehicles, which are like pickup trucks, and then you have entry SUV, sports utility vehicle, and utility sports utility vehicle. So what you see here are the trends of the segment shares as well as the growth of each of these share segments in the car market. And I would want one of you to tell me is that if you had to launch a new vehicle in Indian car market in year 2003 2004, um, which segment would you target? So who's going to tell me that? Ayan Kumar, would you like to give a shot? Ayan Kumar 009.
Yes, sir.
Yes, please.
Hello.
Yes, which segment do you think is attractive?
Sir, I think that here segment A is the most attractive one.
Segment A. Why?
It has previously had more market share,
But right now it does not have more
and
share.
also
Is negative.
the growth rate which was it was negative, but it has been improving with time. So it is showing a steadily
Achha, no, but what
the
about,
future prospect of it is much more better than the other one.
is it so? What about 115% growth rate if you think that future is better? On what basis you are saying? If you are saying based on the growth rates are much higher for several other segments. No?
Yes, sir.
If
Actually,
you are saying on the
yes.
basis of segment share, you have segment B, which has got the highest share. Huh? Think
True.
about it. Okay. Where is 007? You are 009. Do we have 007 as part of this course? Mr. Bond? All right. Aringia. Khare.
Yes, sir. I feel, sir, segment C is quite good because it has a decent amount of share, and in 2 years it has positive growth rate. So I feel that it's quite good in comparison to others, because others are having negative market share. Segment B is also attractive because it also has higher market share, and in 2 years it has positive growth rate.
Hmm.
So actually, I would go with segment B instead of C.
D.
B for Bombay.
B for Bombay, right? Okay, very good. What you are saying is the segment B has got significantly high share and also not so bad growth rate. All right. Any different view here, Mayank?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I would also go with segment B only because in the past 3 years it has the highest market shares, as well as the growth rates are also like showing a positive trend. So
Hmm.
it is expected to grow. So I guess I will also go with segment
So
B
what
only.
about growth rate of 115% and 57% and
Sir, but the
18%?
segment share has not been that good. So like 1.7% and 42.4%, I think 42.4% seems more attractive.
But what will happen to future actually? What you're looking at is currently, and it's quite possible the segment B could be very competitive also, isn't it? With very evolved,
Sir,
segment.
I I feel segment D is really attractive. It seems like it's an emerging segment, even though the segment share is low, but the growth rate suggests that the market preference might change in future. Like most likely it would change in future, and it would be if the company can establish itself in this segment right now, in future, there's high probability that it would capture most of the share.
So how far is that future, the attractive future?
So that would depend, I think, on a lot of factors that we cannot say from the current set of data that we have. But we
Hmm.
know that in a high segment share, there would be a lot of players present already. So it would be difficult to capture a market share there. But for
See,
an emerging segment, probably there would be less players present.
you also have to keep in mind that when you're looking at this growth rates, the current base becomes very very important. If you are selling one car and next year you sell, two cars, your growth rate would be 100%, right? But the question is that, is it really sufficient to survive you till the time it becomes sufficiently large volume? So there are these issues actually. You see this here, short term versus long term. Segment B is pretty attractive in the short term, but we don't know whether it will be attractive in the long term. If you look at the evolution, the segment A is dying, segment B would soon die. Generally consumers would go for more and more premium vehicles, and unless you have other factors coming in, but the trend actually shows that. Also the segment B could be saturated and obviously soon start coming down. On the other hand, if you look at segment D, etc., who has too minuscule sort of share, to might have future, but may have very small size of the market at the moment. But anyway, this was the situation. Let's see what Scorpio did, and just keep this thing in mind, and you'll be able to see what these people did. So having got the situation, before developing the strategy, they try to look at the situation analysis, as we were saying. So first they looked at what's consumers expectation, and just the top line data, the brief understanding of what consumers were expecting at that point in time, where consumers were developing this taste of comfort and luxury, and they didn't want only comfort and luxury in the car, but they were also looking for thrill of SUV, right? So the segment A and B, which were like more economy, city driving, etc., was there between 80 and 2000. But early 2000 onwards, as you could see, the research indicated that the consumers were developing taste of comfort and luxury. They were also looking for thrill that a four-wheel drive vehicle would give, and all this they wanted, but they didn't want to pay a significantly high price that a typical SUV would, command. So they were just about, wanting to pay not more than a sedan segment C car. So this was the kind of situation with respect to the consumer's expectation. They also tried to look at the competition. They found that the competition within the industry was largely divided into two groups. One was all the manufacturers and sellers who were selling cars, passenger cars, passenger vehicles, and the other was selling utility vehicles. So you had companies like Tata's, you had companies like Mahindras. These were champions of utility vehicles. So 407, 709, Marshall, Max of Mahindra. These are popular vehicles, pretty strong, in utility vehicle manufacturing market. But they were failures largely. Mahindra had hardly launched any passenger car, till that time. A passenger vehicle also, predominantly. You take a look at, Tata's, they had this, vehicle called Tata Safari. Uh, Sorry, excuse me. And it was not doing well. They had other, cars, Sierra, Estate, all failures actually. Nobody took them seriously in car market. On the other hand, the car manufacturers like Hyundai, they can't, people cannot accept them as utility vehicle manufacturer. Similarly, Suzuki had tried Gypsy, which was a failure and all that. So you had basically a divide, and people had this very strong impression and image that people who are UV manufacturer, they are UV guys, they can't make cars. Car manufacturers can't make utility vehicle, and the market was segmented based on, as we know, the size, in terms of ABCD, the car type, right? And Chirag wants to launch this Scorpio as entry SUV, rightly so, because we know what the Scorpio is like, and hence perhaps you are guessing that. Let's see what they did. So they also looked at the company's point of view. So you had consumer competition company. They look at what is company's objective. Anand Mahindra was very clear. He said that the Scorpio project rolls out only if you guarantee me 1,200 vehicles volume every month. Now these marketing guys are kind of sitting and saying that, boss, this is crazy, and you must be also prepared to face this kind of situation. Large companies, of the size of Mahindra and Tata's, even some of the professional companies, but by and large family companies definitely, would have this kind of situation. The big boss, would decide, some element, of marketing mix and fix it, and then ask you to develop strategy. A typical, copybook, marketing management advocates that you first decide your target segment positioning, and then decide what are the product features which should deliver that value as you identified in the strategy. What should be the price, should be aligned to the value that you have chosen, should distribution channel should be aligned to. Everything has to be integrated to deliver that perceived value that you have chosen. But quite often in practice, you might have a situation like this. In this particular case, the big boss had tied up with some Italian design company, and he had some vision, so I want to get into SUV or whatever. So they said, let's create a large vehicle like Scorpio, all of you have seen. It looked like a tank actually, and they say that this is the design that I'm going to launch in the market. The product was ready, the chassis, the whole assembly line, everything was geared to kind of go into production. And he said that, boss, we need 1200 vehicles a month, without realizing that if they had to launch Scorpio the way they were thinking at that point in time before they launched, in entry SUV category, the category leader was Tata Safari. It was selling just 250 vehicles. In that segment, the leader brand was selling 250 vehicles a month. Mahindra wanted 1200 vehicles per month for the project to be viable. So now you have a situation. Give me a second. Let me turn on the fan. So what do you do, as a brand manager? How do you really launch this when you have a challenge like this, that you have a volume target, and you have a product which is perhaps more designed to cater to a segment which is hardly significant sell to meet your volume target, and also in line with the common perception of Mahindra. It was more challenging because Mahindra was perceived to be utility vehicle manufacturer, and hence you can at the max get into entry SUV. But suppose, for example, as Mayank was suggesting, and perhaps Arinjia was suggesting, that you should get into segment B. It is impossible for them to go for the kind of product they had, and obviously you cannot sell it at segment B price. And also, the whole imagery of Mahindra, the baggage, suppose if you have to sell this as segment D, as somebody was suggesting, Mahindra had huge baggage, right? It was considered to be a tractor manufacturer, utility vehicle manufacturer, targeted more fossil markets, rural markets. So this was the company situation. Consumers wanted everything at a price that they cannot pay more than segment C prices. And of course, you had competition where people generally not get into somebody else's territory. So if a car manufacturer is, you will get into. So you have now the situation. What do you do? So Mahindra say that the marketing team, along with the advertising agency, which was Interface FCB at that point in time, and they say that yes, the most attractive segment perhaps, given the situation and the consumer's expectation, is segment C, as somebody was mentioning earlier in the first instance itself. Why? Because it had fairly large segment to give you the volumes that you were targeting. SUV, entry SUVs should not have SUV is not yet sold in India at that point in time. Entry SUV was perhaps the largest selling brand was going 250 vehicles. You cannot launch this kind of product segment B and get expected price to make any even gross margins. So they say that segment C is something that we can look at. and we will try to call this product a car. It may look like a tank, but we will call it a car. And they boldly decided to position itself as a car, and say that okay, we will kind of do communication which perhaps will establish that imagery. So how do you do that? Typical utility vehicle entry SUV would be in uh, outskirt area, four-wheel situation, splashing water and moving in the forest, etc. But no, we will. This is a car, so we will keep it in the city, and the tank may start looking like a car. We will also try to play around the branding approach, because most of the Mahindra vehicles till then we are trying to leverage Mahindra brand, because Mahindra is an established company, by the way, and people had a lot of credibility and trust in this particular company. So most of the vehicles were known by Mahindra, was more importantly, and then you had the product brands. So Mahindra Jeep, Mahindra Marshall, Mahindra, Max, likewise. And they said that so far as Scorpio is concerned, since we are launching it against the cars segment C, we can't use Mahindra baggage. And instead, we would try to put Mahindra in shadow and try to focus on the product brand, so that we can reduce perhaps the baggage or the negative image that Mahindra has. But at the same time, some positives, that it's an established company which can give reliable product. We will use Mahindra in shadow. So these were the key decisions that they took. Now the question comes is that okay, your strategy is to call it car and put it in segment C. The question is that what do you do with your product which is looking like a tank? Your product price place promotion has to be integrated to reflect your value proposition or positioning strategy. So they said, okay, we can't do much about this product because already designed and it's ready to go in the assembly line, but we can make some subtle changes to make it look like car as much as it is possible. Now, one of the biggest obvious difference just by the look between a car and an SUV is what? What do you see in an SUV which you don't see in a car, or what do you see in a car which you don't see in very obvious, just by looking at it you can make out that this is an SUV, or this is a car, right? Without too much of technical issues that you can change the product. So what they say that okay, SUVs or utility vehicles generally have spare wheel which is stuck at the backside, which is seen, whereas in cars you don't see spare wheel. It's under it's in the boot space and things like that. So they say that okay, so as our product looks like SUV or an entry SUV, if not tank, can we at least make it look like car by removing the spare wheel and put it underneath? And then what we can do is we can make some changes in the interiors, try to make seats more comfortable, put some handrest on the doors. And however funny it may sound, in those days Mahindra vehicles did not even have doors, so putting handrest was something luxurious for them. I don't know whether you've seen Mahindra Jeep with this tarpaulin rolling up and all that. There are no doors there. So the company decided that we'll make it look like a car by putting handrests, and we'll also put music system, etc. The price, of course, was around segment C, so they did not have much difficulty, and they decided to launch this car. Take a look at the launch commercial. So the brand was launched using this ad. Just take a look at it. So as you could see, the brand was launched with Mahindra in shadow. It only talked about Scorpio. Is small letter from Mahindra, but unlike their strategy for the other vehicles, Mahindra Scorpio, they just chose to focus on Scorpio. What you also saw was that it was targeting segment C, and very cleverly they used this line called "Cars will now suffer from low self-esteem," right? Because in those days, segment C was dominated by a brand called Suzuki Esteem, which was the leader in that particular segment. So they wanted to kind of take that brand head on, and hence they used this line, which they thought is very clever line. Starting today, cars will suffer from low self-esteem. As you can see, Scorpio is very big compared to Mahindra to avoid. Take a look at the international feel. In the commercial, you saw that the international feel was given by the white models. So in India, if you use white models, suddenly everything becomes international. And you have this white man coming out of his big mansion. There's a sedan, premier sedan parked outside. He looks in disgust, and then goes to the tennis court, and you have dramatic launch happening, right? So, and you look at this, the sleek visuals of urban landscape, in which this tank is moving, trying to create an impression that this is a car, right? And they continued without any shame, that this is a car, right? you know and is better than esteem. The cars will now suffer from low self-esteem. Big ads making cars feel inadequate since yesterday. The car you walk into, not crawl into. You say, okay, this is a car, but this is better car because it's a tank. You can actually walk into it. You don't have to crawl into it. The car you will hear about, not hear. The car that makes others sit up and you sit back. The car you look up to, not look down upon. And they went on, with this campaign, which actually gives an impression that this is not just a car, but this is better car. It's a car plus positioning that they did in the communication. And the campaign went on, so plush, so comfortable, so depressing for other cars. A car from inside, car's worst nightmare on the outside. Take a look at filthy interior, but they were quite proud of it. But yeah, of course, uh, from Mahindra standard, it was very luxurious. The car that's known by the car it leaves behind. One car, 1 year, one too many. If you were to ask any other car first anniversary ad, 29, the car that achieved what other cars didn't even attempt, 29 states in 29 days. And then, at the end of the year, 9 eminent judges chose the car of the year. What does it say about other cars? So people were, kind of laughing that, how can this product be sold as a car? And all of them were surprised that the 9 eminent judges chose it the car of the year, and the company actually chose to run a full page advertisement in the newspapers and magazines you know about that. Now we know that every damn vehicle that is launched would become car of the year someday, but it was something that they actually played on. And 91 points to make one simple point to other cars. To take a look at who they are comparing. They're comparing with Hyundai Accent, Mitsubishi Lancer, Maruti Suzuki Esteem, of course, and Maruti Baleno. In those days, Baleno used to be sedan. Now they have come out with hatchback version. But they were largely comparing. Of course, Qualis also they were comparing, but largely they were positioned against segment C. Also, some entry SUVs like Qualis. It's the car of the year. Other cars remain nominees. The campaign continues. Sorry, other cars. Now, other cars is someone to look up to. And they went on bombarding consumers with this message that this is car of the year, car plus, better than car, etc. And the results are in front of you. More than 2,500 vehicles per month. They could register in the first year itself. The target was half of what they could achieve. So which means that the strategy actually worked, wherein they decided not to focus on the traditional segments which most of the brands were following, but they decided to, create their own target segment, which was not belonging to any one of those sub-segments that, we saw, but it came from many such sub-segments. So there were car segment C buyers. Because of the price point, they could also got attracted and say that this is also comfortable. And many segment C buyers bought because the advertising targeted on, against the car segment C. It looked like SUVs. A lot of these entry SUV buyers also came into buying Mahindra. And there was 1 month waiting period in highly competitive market. Various awards in car category, FE Advertising Effectiveness Award, for advertising, and they created a whole new category from the point of view of the positioning strategy. This is a kind of landmark, case in the history of Indian automobile market. And we know what has happened. This crossover SUV category or car plus category subsequently grew, to a level that we now know. Which is, a kind of the largest selling passenger car today in Indian markets are these crossovers, whether it's Ford Icon, sorry, not, EcoSport or Duster, or even several, whether it is, Kia Seltos or MG Hack. So you have, sales coming from several segments, which also can be seen here, that all the segments actually, grew in subsequent year, with the launch of Scorpio. What we are trying to say is that the strategy could not have been effectively implemented, given the product design which was already ready and it never looked like car. It is largely this communication which bombarded consumer and changed their perception as to, and the perception was, largely looking at vehicles in those silos. They kind of changed that, and it appealed to them because, of course, it was backed by the consumer research, which reflected what were their expectations. So it was in line with what consumer expected. So the strategy was right, but more importantly, it was implemented well to create right kind of perception among the target audience, which appealed to them, and rest is history. So what we are trying to say again, before we get into the marketing communication, is that this is a very important element, particularly from the demand generation point of view in consumer market. The brand managers largely focus on spending the marketing budget on communications, which in turn build demand and also build brand in the long term. And as you can see here, several stories that you perhaps are aware of, that most of the good brands exist today because they communicate well. A great brand would have to have great speech as well, right? So it is very, very important from the point of view of brand management, marketing communication. Now, when you talk about marketing communication, there are several kinds of marketing communication that we as consumers are exposed to. In a day, somebody's counting this, in a day, an average consumer gets exposed to about 3,000 plus brand communication messages, right? Right now, for example, you are, getting exposed to brand communication of IMK because on the slide you see IMK logo, right? As you wake up in the morning, you pick up your phone and, you will have brand messages on your Facebook or WhatsApp. As you kind of read the newspaper, you will find that. You turn on television, you will find brand messages. You walk out on the street or a mall, you will have brand messages. So, and these are all variety of different kind of messages, right? So, it could be a t-shirt of IMK that you are wearing, or a presentation slide where IMK logo is there, or a newspaper report which says that, despite COVID, great summer placement, or an email that you receive from PGP office. Everywhere you find IMK, and all different kinds of one brand. All brands put together several messages that you're. The question then comes is that when you want to communicate brand's value, What tool do you use? Should you send an email? Should you, give a press release to, have your newspaper writing about you? Should you make a presentation? Should you do television commercial? So how do you really, and there are all kinds of possible communication tool, right? There are companies which use human faces, as communication media. So you put a logo of the brand and, get some pocket money and, keep, moving about, even, in front of camera like this, your brand will be visible. So what I'm trying to say is that, there are several communication tools. So how do you really, decide, uh, how do you take your message to the audiences, and what do you do to communicate your brand's value and achieve your marketing objectives? So the better way, when you have infinite number of communication tools, right, is to, create broad classes based on, how they are different and how they contribute differently to brand's objective. Generally people have found out that there are five broad kind of communication, and all the possible communication tool can be grouped under these five categories or classes, and they contribute to the brand's objective in different ways. So you have to, first level, you have to decide which of these five major communication tools that you want to deploy your resources, and then, you can work out, in line with how they work, what could be the best, execution of that particular communication tool. Now, I don't know whether you have come across these five major modes of communications, marketing communication, or five major tools of promotion. But can somebody tell me which is the oldest communication tool that you have come across? Who will tell me? Vidya Sagar will tell me. Vidya?
Sir,
Yeah. You would have, as a consumer, experienced a lot of brand communication, right?
yes, sir.
Can you think of the oldest communication tool that the companies would have perhaps used?
Verbal, sir. Radio.
Sorry?
Verbal communication like radios,
Radio. Okay.
newspapers.
So when was radio, invented, and, when did it become a mass communication tool?
Around 1950s.
Very good. But, do you think brands were talking to the consumers before that?
Maybe verbal, word of mouth kind of. Verbal.
Sorry?
Newspaper was the oldest, maybe for mass communication.
And before printing press were invented, or, before printing press, newspaper became popular?
Newspaper. Maybe there might not be any mass communication, but the word of mouth kind of things.
Word of mouth kind of thing. Okay. Anybody else? Nidish Ramakrishnan. Nidish is there?
Yes, sir.
Huh. What's your view? What do you think is the oldest?
So can you hear me?
Yes, yes, very much. Yes, I can hear you. Nidish,
Okay.
I think we are not able to hear.
Sure.
Yes.
Okay. I think there's a lag.
Looks like there is some connectivity issue with your.
Hello. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah. So there is some lag in my end. Sorry for that.
No.
Sir. Yeah. So I think, sir, the oldest mode of communication could be person-to-person communication when there was no other mode, no printing press, no other mass communication. Hello.
Yes, yes, yes. I can hear you. What are you saying?
Yeah, sir. I said the oldest communication where there was no mass media before would be person-to-person communication. Most probably, I think.
What do you call that?
So personal communication, personal modes of communication.
Okay, so personal communication, some people are referring as word of mouth. Is it the same as that?
Um. Yeah, sir. I think yeah, same. No, sir. Person-to-person communication would be when the company or the brand itself is communicating. Word of mouth would be that when the customers are talking among themselves. So yeah, direct selling, as Chirag is. I think that
Mhm.
would be the oldest form.
You're right, actually. And I think all those people who are saying word of mouth communication is the oldest communication, I will tell that, word of mouth is the latest communication tool, not the oldest communication tool. So the word of mouth, as Nidish is saying, is a communication happening face to face, but between two consumers and not between a company's salesperson and the consumer. Oldest communication tool is personal selling, where a company sales representative used to go door to door, as somebody mentioned, or meet the people in person and try to persuade them, explain them the benefit of the brand, and try to sell them and used to sell them. The oldest communication. Uh, Nidish, I will continue if your microphone and your connectivity permits with you. So if personal selling is the oldest communication tool, which are the other communication tool, and what is the most effective communication tool?
Um.
You know effectiveness, right?
The communication tools would be
Nidish, I'm sorry, I think there is some technical issue. So I would not waste much time.
yes, sir. Effectiveness as in so okay. Sir, am I audible now?
You're audible, but I think we are losing you in between. Would you
Uh,
like, okay, once again, very quickly, tell me, what is the most effective communication?
sir, yeah, sir. Effect. Sir. So the first question was the other forms of communication. So we have print media, internet, calling, etc. And in the current context, I believe that the most effective would be social media communication, maybe because it allows hyper segmentation of consumers, because you can directly target them, and it is a form of mass plus personal form of communication.
So what do you mean by effectiveness, by the way?
So that the message that the sender is trying to send is properly received by the receiver, I guess.
Hmm.
That there is no change of there is no change of meaning when the sender is sending and when the receiver is receiving.
In general, okay, forget about specific to communication or marketing. In general, what is effectiveness?
Uh, Sir, in general, effectiveness would be uh, output upon input. So the amount of output you get for a certain amount
What
of
is
input.
efficiency then?
Okay. Yes, sir. I got
Efficiency is
confused there.
output upon input, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Mm. So effectiveness is, to what extent, a particular action or a program or an activity is, sort of helping you achieve your goals, right? So if you are 100% effective, then you achieve your goal 100%. If you are 80% effective, 80% of your goal are achieved, right? When we say that effectiveness, which communication tool is the most effective, you have to look at what are the goals of marketing. This is a marketing communication. So what is it that you expect at the end of it, when you by doing marketing for a brand? You look at sales, and which particular communication tool can effectively help you sell more, right, is a question, Nidish.
Sir, I believe in that regard, this would be direct selling uh, to get the most sales out of it,
Why
because
not
the
social
marketer
media,
can
you are saying?
interact and respond. Yes, sir. I got confused. Yes.
So why do you think direct selling or personal selling could be most effective? Forget about social media for a while. Think about it. Let me go with Sujata.
Sir, I believe it could be most effective because we would be able to get. Yeah. Sure.
Sujata,
Yes, sir.
is what's your view? Which is the
Sir,
oldest communication tool? Which is the most effective communication tool? Effective in the sense that which can help achieve brand's goal of selling more.
sir, it depends on what we want to target here. Like,
Mhm.
uh, so it depends on totally the marketing strategy.
No. I mean, in general sense, because you want to sell more. That is, constant across all brands by and large, right?
Yes, sir.
So, to generate sales, to effectively sell a product, which particular communication tool can help you do that in the best way?
So social media can be one
You
tool,
don't
but
want to put your finger on any of those, is it?
yeah, it can be a mix of direct selling, online tool, everything.
Acha. Okay, let me take Pankhuri's view then. Hmm.
Yes,
Pankhuri,
sir.
do you have any view on this?
Sir, I think direct marketing could ensure that the number of conversions are higher.
Nitish is saying direct selling, somebody is saying personal selling, you are saying direct marketing. Are they all same, Pankhuri? Any idea?
Sir,
What
according
do you
to
mean by
my
direct marketing?
understanding, yeah, so in direct marketing, you connect with the consumer on a one-to-one basis, is what I understand. So, yeah, each consumer is communicated individually rather than, for example, in advertising, it's a common
So in
advertising.
direct selling, you don't do that, or personal selling, you don't do that.
Yes, so I was talking about direct marketing.
What about personal selling? So
I'm
direct
not
marketing
sure
is
if
an
there's
appropriate word. Direct selling is appropriate word. Hmm. Acha, okay, fine. So you are saying that direct marketing is the most useful. Is that so?
yes, sir.
Basically, what you are trying to say is that you meet person on face-to-face basis. A
Yes, so
sales
either meet
representative will.
face-to-face basis or communicate on an individual level. So through telephone calls or face-to-face or
Huh,
emails and all of that. Yes.
okay. So the oldest tool that Nidish was saying was face-to-face communication, which is also direct, isn't it? Because it is one-to-one.
Yes, sir.
So that is the most effective according to you.
Sir, can I add one point?
Yes, why not?
So like in the beginning, when we are not sure what is our overall customer segment, we can use something like, for example, LinkedIn or any social media tool. So once we have generated some leads, then we can use direct selling or some one-to-one type of method when we are narrowing down the customer segment. That's what I felt.
Suppose you have something very big to sell. Hmm? Where were you working, Sujata?
So previously, I was working with Ecolab.
Where?
Ecolab,
Ecolab.
yeah.
What do they do?
So they sell service and chemical also. In service, basically, we work with some real-time asset monitoring, those kind of technology.
Is it technology or
Yeah.
chemicals?
No, we sell chemicals also. It is in water, energy, utility system business.
Who were your customers, by the way?
So in my project, my customers were customers from power industry like Exelon, those kind of.
So how were you cracking the deals? Any idea?
So basically, we'll be providing training to the sales representatives. They will be in charge selling it to the customers actually.
So this is actually selling it was happening, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So when you have, so, what would be the average value of the contract, Sujata?
I'm not exactly sure. In the first
Roughly,
year, sir, it was a like the project which I was working on. First year, it was nearly free actually, so it was done on a trial basis. In the next year, we were charging it.
what would be the fees that, or charge that you would have for the project? Roughly, would it be 10 rupees, 100 rupees, 1,000 rupees, 100,000 rupees, million?
So more,
Huh?
I'm not sure exact cost.
No, roughly, yeah. No,
Not exactly sure of the cost here.
you don't even know whether it is 10 rupees or 100,000
No,
rupees.
no, it is definitely more than I think 2,000 to 3,000 rupees. So actually, it depends on like how many
I say the entire project 2,000 rupees.
No, not the entire project. I meant how to explain it.
So power companies, you would sell your selling team for 2,000 rupees
No,
contract.
no, no. I did not mean it.
I'm sure it must be 100,000 plus at least, isn't
Yeah.
it? So when you have something as big as that to sell, if you are using personal selling, I'm sure it must be the most effective, so it can jolly well sell, a 10 rupee shampoo sachet, isn't it? No? If a large project can be sold by a selling team, suppose if that selling team goes and tries to sell.
Sir, it was a direct selling from the sales representative.
Right. Now, I got it. So now
Yeah.
suppose if the selling, team tries to sell, Cadbury's dairy milk, right, to you or to Vidyasagar or to me, uh, obviously that would be effective, isn't it? If they can sell, $1 million contract or a project, they can definitely sell, 10 rupee chocolate or, 100 rupee edible oil or a parachute or something. Am I right or wrong?
Sir, like here we are also ensuring that we are maintaining a long-term contract with this customer. So in future, we want them to upsell and cross-sell for our services.
Yeah. So such a big customer,
Yeah.
if you can do it with personal selling, why not even small thing? Definitely, if they can be effective there for such big, selling opportunity, small things they can definitely do, isn't it?
So in that case, the cost is higher for like input
Don't get
cost is
confused
higher.
between effectiveness and efficiency, right?
Maybe. Yeah,
That's
maybe.
what Nidish was getting confused with, right? Effectiveness is not about cost. It is about to what extent you are able to generate, results in line with the goals that you have, right? So your objective is to sales in marketing. Selling becomes the most effective communication tool, right? Why? Because it is personalized communication. People would be in a position to, if Sujata, likes dark chocolate, I can talk about dark chocolate and its benefit. If she likes more sugar in a chocolate, I can talk about it. I can tailor make my communication, isn't it? And persuade Sujata and give her the benefit and the value, explain that is there in the brand in the most appropriate way. No other communication tool like television commercial or a print media or social media can do that. Am I right or wrong?
Yes, sir.
So the personal selling, as we are saying, or direct selling, there's small difference. We'll not get into it right now, but this face-to-face selling, let me put it that way, was the oldest communication tool. Now we are also saying that it is effective, most effective communication tool, because even in high value sales like Sujata's business, Eco Lab, also that happens. Why the hell do you require any other kind of communication? Do you see any problem with this? Like you were saying, there's a problem, and the problem is of the efficiency, right? Because it becomes very, very expensive. If you have $1 million deal to be won, then you can sell your people and the entire selling team to win that. But if you have to sell 1 rupee sachet of shampoo, your entire arithmetic would not permit you to do the personal selling. Am I right or wrong?
Yes, sir.
And this actually started happening with when the brand started going national. So initially print media was not there because printing press itself were perhaps invented, but it was not that popular medium, and it had limited reach. But these machines, with the industrial revolution in 18th 19th century, was now coming to the businesses, and all those companies, Procter and Gamble used to be a cottage industry. They used to make these wax candles and Kame soap in a very laborious way with skilled labor, etc., in a small factory. And then they would sell it on a face-to-face basis by their salespeople in local catchment area. Likewise, the poultry fellows will sell eggs and stuff like that, milk. So this is how the economy was functioning. We're talking about early 90s and maybe 19th century, not early 90s, early 20th century or 19th century. And but then what happened is when the machines came with the mass production, all these companies started manufacturing in 1,000 times more output. The machine would produce in bulk. And then they said, what to do? We have to now serve with so much of finished good inventory. They decided to take their products and goods to the large market, national market. Suddenly these local companies started catering to national market. And then they realize that it becomes extremely difficult to send salespeople and do this kind of sort of face-to-face selling. And by then the printing presses were started creating newspapers which are becoming popular, and they realized that they can serve national market by taking their communication through this medium, which was newspaper or mass medium. And they started putting what a salesperson would say to a consumer or potential customer into the newspaper, right? So that those were the kind of initial advertising that we're talking about, which were mostly textual, talking about the benefits of the brand, etc., etc. So if you look at even today, personal selling is the most effective communication tool. But the problem with that is that it is very expensive when you have to deal with large number of consumers and you have low value item, right? So if I'm going to buy one toilet soap or one bottle of shampoo, it becomes certainly too expensive and the efficiency inefficient to have a salesperson coming and selling this product to me. Yes. Sorry, I was distracted by some private message that came about Aringia, who's desperately trying to get his internet back. Anyway, what are we saying? We are saying that this person selling becomes inefficient for small packaged goods companies, particularly when they deal with large number of consumers. And hence you had new communication tool which came, which was fundamentally different than the personal communication, because it dealt with the mass media, right? And it was standardized communication as against customized communication, and they started calling it advertising. So the advertising is a standard communication to large number of consumers as against personalized communication which happened face to face. So fine, it served the great purpose for the brands to create more efficient way of communication. But then the brand realized that certainly advertising is not effective in generating sales. And it certainly would create awareness about the brand. It could create understanding of what are the brand's benefit, but people were not buying it because they would read newspaper on the dining table, breakfast table, they will watch television in living room, they will listen to radio in the car, but they have to go to the store to buy it. And by the time they go to store, they would have a lot of distractions, they would have forgotten, and the sale would not happen immediately. So the brand say we have to do something, we can't go back to personal selling because that's not viable option any longer when we deal with national market. And we have to generate sales because the effectiveness has come down, although the cost has come down significantly through advertising for the communication. So you know what they came up with? They said that can we use mass media communication which can generate sales effectively? And they said that, how do we do that? Instead of talking about brand's benefit, if we talk about giving incentive, people would immediately go to the store and buy it. So they say that, we will advertise like 50% off, BOGO offer, buy one, get one free, buy this now and go to Singapore. There's a coupon there where you get 20% off, things like that. So they say that, okay, we will give incentive, and it worked. They could register sales happening in short term. You could see the sales lift happening. So which communication tool they started calling sales promotion, because it is promotion is a larger umbrella term used for all kinds of communication tool which generate favorable response for the brand. But sales promotion is a specific kind of promotion tool which is tied to the sales, which means, when you buy something, you will get incentive, which means the sales is guaranteed to take place if people try to get that incentive. So you buy one, then only you get one free, right? So that is an incentive tied to the sales, so the sales will jump up. So that was the whole communication tool, which again can happen in the mass media. You can advertise on television, radio, print, etc. So mass media communications started ruling the marketing scene, right from early 19th century, uh, more importantly, post 1920s, 1930s, all the way up to not 19th, 20th century, and all the way up to but today's time. Large amount of marketing communication budget, large amount of promotion budget today, brands spend on advertising and sales promotion. Almost 80 to 100% budget in consumer goods market is spent on advertising and sales promotion. Please understand that sales promotion alone cannot do the job of selling, because if you only give incentive but people don't know the value of the brand, then they will not buy, because that is against the fundamental idea of marketing. Consumers have to see the benefit, then only they will buy. So advertising is required to create this awareness that the brand has benefit, but that's not sufficient. In order to close the deal and sales, you have to have the incentive. So the marketers use advertising and sales promotion in combination, and try to spend their promotion budget to get both brand awareness, interest, liking, and also eventually sales. And hence since large amount of money is spent, there's a lot of research is happening. There's a very evolved science of advertising and sales promotion, and most of the textbook on marketing communications are called advertising and sales promotion textbook. For example, your textbook is also called advertising and sales promotion, because these are the two important tools that the marketers have used so far. However, so when it comes to large national brands, obviously personal selling is out of question, and it is rarely used, except for companies like Eureka, Forbes, which operate in consumer market with door-to-door selling, or there are a few companies which use this kind of model like Amway, using multi-level marketing or direct selling model. But by and large, most of the packaged goods company or consumer goods company use mass media communication. However, by late 20th century, things started changing. what started happening was, as all of you were mentioning, that you had technology coming into picture, and newer technologies were about interactive technologies. So you had telephone to begin with, and then you had mobile phone, you had internet, emails, which actually brought down the personalized communications cost significantly, right? So you had a new communication tool which was personal communication. It was customized communication, but it could cater to large number of people at much lesser cost using technology, interactive technology. So you can wish, Uber will send you a message, we miss you because you're, so it's a very tailor-made message, because since you have not taken Uber ride for last 6 months, they are sending you this message and giving you win back offer. So very tailor-made, communication can happen using this interactive message, which a personalized message, again, effectiveness can be brought in. But still, they are still expensive means compared to advertising and sales promotion. Packaged consumer goods companies continue to use mass media. However, if you look at this change in the economy also, because large number of companies started selling services, or services started contributing in countries' economy, perhaps, with exception of China, where manufacturing still rules. But most of the developed and developing economy countries, it's largely the services which contribute significantly. And in that context, you find that services company, whether utility company, banking, telecom, healthcare, these companies, try to reach to large consumer market using this direct marketing communication tool. So direct marketing, Pankhuri, is different from selling, personal selling. Direct marketing, largely relies on centralized, sort of communication from the firm side, not individual representative of the company. And it generally may not take place on a face-to-face basis. Even if it takes place face-to-face basis, the data about the customer comes to the centralized system using CRM or some such database technology. So it is different in that sense. Plus, also direct selling is always about contacting the consumers directly, whereas personal selling can also be about selling to trade or other intermediate customers as well. But we'll not get into that semantics right now. What we are saying is that when you use interactive technologies, to reach to the consumers directly, you use what is called direct marketing. So what we are saying is, broadly, there are two kinds of communications. One is mass communication, mass media communication, and mass essentially means as a standardized communication. And the other is personal communication, which is personalized communication. The personalized communication could be, face to face, or it could be using interactive technology. It could be even chatbot or AI powered voice assistant like Alexa. You can have, personalized communication happening on a mass scale today with AI powered, voice assistant or virtual assistant. But broadly, that's personalized communication. And the other is personalized communication, which is face-to-face. Two kinds of personal communication. Similarly, mass also, two kinds of mass communication. One which actually talks about brand's benefit, and the other which talks about incentive to the consumer. Now, all four communication tools, if you look at, has certain advantages, disadvantages. No one tool is perfect. So personal selling, while it is most effective, and that's why we see it applied in business markets or any large value sales, but the problem with it is that when it comes to large mass market, millions of consumers, it becomes too expensive, particularly when you have ticket size or the product value or price which is significantly lower. So in retail consumer market, personal selling becomes inefficient, although it is effective. On the other hand, advertising can create a lot of awareness, create interest also. People would start liking, brands. It can even make brands sexier. The biggest advantage, that advertising gives to the brand is not in terms of selling, or immediate selling, I would say. Long term it has. And what it kind of helps in doing for the brand or achieving for the brand is brand building, right? So what is brand building? Brand building, what is a brand? Basically, brand is nothing but an identity, which is like name, symbol, or whatever, but it has got meaning, right? So for example, you have brand called Apple, and when I say Apple, Apple has created a new meaning of word Apple. You don't think of Apple as a fruit, you think of iPhone and MacBook making company, right? So the entire meaning is changed, of this word called Apple, and that's the brand building that they have done. Now, how you can attribute or associate meaning with the brand name? If you have to do that, you have to on large scale consistent meaning across large market or large number of consumers, you'll have to do, right? So if I can create standardized understanding across large number of people, then I have created brand building. No personal communication can help you do that, because each communication, if it is tailor made and customized, it cannot create standardized meaning across large number of people. So advertising that sense has tremendous advantage in building brands. And these brands, when they are built, it gives credibility, it brings trust, you can charge premium, it gives a lot of advantages in the long run to the brand. So while it cannot do immediate sales, it can actually help you. Sales promotion at much lesser expense can build immediate sales, because it provides incentive. It talks about incentive. Direct marketing, again, like personal communication, can build personalized communication, but more importantly, rather than selling, it can help you build relationship, because you can have interactive communication dialogue going on a regular basis, which can contribute in building relationships. So services company, for that matter, use this direct marketing in a big way. One of the largest, biggest beneficiaries of direct marketing is Citibank. You have consumer goods company also do that, like companies which can't do too much of advertising, alcohol making company, marketing company like Johnny Walker brand, and they use direct marketing in a big way. You have most of even consumer brands are getting servicized today. So you have like May Beauty Salon coming into picture. You have Asian Paints home solution coming into it. So they do servicization, and then suddenly this direct marketing becomes mainstream communication, but still not that cheap compared to mass media communication. Anyway, all four communications are now mainstream, and depending upon what kind of market you operate, you can pick and choose not one, but all of them in different combination. We will take a break now. We'll come back at 4:30, right, and then continue our discussion. Thank you.